Yeah. Yeah. And so that's always a dream, but absolutely. I can only imagine. Right. Unfortunately, right about at that same time, right, 05 and 06, you catch a bit of the injury bug.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
so you get called in the men's national team, goalkeeper of the year finalist the year before. Now you got to miss 2 seasons in a row. Talk about, if you could, the mentality that got you through rehab, got you to continue just not quitting, right? That, because it's very easy at that point to say, okay, you know what, I can't do it again. But did you have you talked about some relationships you had already. You have a coach, a teammate that just took you over and said, hey, you're going to get through this, man. You keep pushing, you keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it's called stupidity. I didn't know what else to do. So I'm not
Yep.
smart enough to do anything else.
Yeah.
So no, it was devastating the first year, right? Because I had just come out of a January camp where I actually got my first start for the national team. Bruce, and at that time, Phil Wedden was the goalkeeper coach. Like, they told me how well I did. And, I had actually, if you look back, I went into that camp and it was Joe Cannon, Kevin Hartman, Matt Reese, Nick Raimondo. But Joe was, Joe.
What a group.
Yeah. At that time, Joe was kind of the number one domestic MLS guy, right?
Uh-huh.
For the national team. Yeah, you had Casey and you had Brad, but they, and all those guys, but they're playing in Europe, right? For the MLS guys, it was Joe and Kevin were the top two, and then the rest of us.
Right.
I went into that camp. I don't even know, probably third, fourth, fifth. I don't even know. I was just happy to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And and next thing I know, I'm playing the game at the end of that, and I'm like, oh, what happened? And like, it was really cool. I mean, it was unbelievable. And so coming out of that camp, it was like, holy crap, like I might be able to do this kind of thing. So I went from that unbelievable high, in whatever it was, January, February, to, tearing my ACL, when one of my teammates fell on me in LA, in an away game in LA off a corner kick. And if you could find that on YouTube, you will hear somebody yelling like you've never heard, because it was unbelievable. And that's back when I think they had the microphones right on the back of the crossbar. So you'll hear every but yeah, it was devastating. I mean, it was devastating. But again, doctor comes out, does the old test. You tore your ACL. I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'll be okay. Just me running, dumbass that I am. Like, I thought, oh, it's no problem. Here are doctors telling me I've torn my ACL, and I'm telling them, no, I'm okay.
No, I can keep going.
Yeah, so that didn't last too long, by the way. So yeah, I went in the locker room. It literally happened right before halftime. So I went in the locker room. Doctor's in there with me. He's checking. Yeah, like, you're like, okay. So I remember Greg coming in. Some of the players coming in, Mays and those guys, like, they had to go back out for the second half, and I just remember sitting there, like. And my phone, I had my phone with me, but I didn't want to answer any phone calls. It's ringing nonstop. The first message that I eventually, when I listened to it, was actually Phil Wedden, and him and Bruce were together, and they were watching the game wherever they were. And I just remember him saying, look, like, we're sorry, we're watching. You don't have to do it tonight, but at some point, let us know, like, what it is. And it took me a while. Like, it just devastated me, because I was like, when that's my first phone call, first message on the phone, I was just like, it kind of clicks in your head. I'm like, oh crap, I may have been in their plans. Like, I may have been really in their plans, because they're watching the game and they're calling right away. So that was pretty hard for me to take. But it was just, I've always had this mentality where, because I was small, that I was always going to outwork everybody. I was always the first on the field. I was always the last to leave. And people will tell you that. And I'll tell you, a Joe Cannon story later about it. But, and once I kind of got over the disappointment, and it took a little while, but once I had surgery, it was like, okay. Doc's like, it'll take you 6 months. I said, no, it's going to take me 4 months. He's like, no, I said, you can try to slow me down all you want, but I'm telling you. And, that switch in my mind just went. And as soon as I had the surgery and I started rehabbing, I mean, I would, once I was able to really start rehabbing, I would spend so much time in the facility, just lifting and running and biking and every little thing. If they told me to do, 10 reps of this, I did 30. I just was like, no, I'm coming back from this and I'm proving people wrong, and I did. I mean, I was back to training in 4 months. Doc didn't clear me till 6 months, but we were in the off season anyway, so it didn't really matter at that point.
Right.
But he knew he had to slow me down. So get back from the first one, going very well. Played the first, I think, 10 or 11 games of the next season. I think this is when Ziggy came in as well, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
And another freak accident. Stepped on Ezra's foot on a corner kick. Ezra was running this way. I was coming this way to get the ball. So I planted and I turned. And as I went to turn and push off, he pulled his foot out from underneath mine and it torqued it again. This was actually in Columbus this time. And I knew at that time I knew it didn't hurt like it did the first time, but I just knew. I'm like, I just did it. And again, Pete Edwards, who's the owner of the team now, he was a doc at the time, came up, did the old test. He goes, yeah, you just tore your graft, because he's the one that did my surgery. So he knew.
You know it.
So now I'm like, holy crap. It was literally like, I think it was a week shy of a year, if I remember correctly, or something around that ballpark. And I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. So that was very hard, because I had done so much to get back. I didn't take any time off. I just went the entire winter and double sessions and whatever I needed to do. And I was in good form. And then that happens. And so I was like, holy moly. But then, once I got my mentality right, and it's all about your mentality. Once I got that mentality kind of switched over from, feeling sorry for myself and, being a little whiner to, okay, it's time to get back to work and grind. The second time was actually easier to rehab because I knew exactly the steps. And so for me, it was like, okay, the first couple of weeks, you're going to be doing this. The next couple of weeks, you're going to be doing this. If you have no setbacks at week 12, you're jogging and and so mentally, even though I pushed myself just as hard, it was a little bit easier because I knew what it entailed. Whereas the first year, I was always scared to death to kind of move to the next process, because I was like, are they sure I can do that? Are they sure I can do that? And the second time around, I was like, yeah, I know I can do that. Let's go.
I'm good there. Yeah.
Let's move. Let's cruise through the process. So, but again, once we got that right, and the same thing, I was back to on the field doing goalkeeper training at 4 months, cleared at 6, but I also knew, like the doctor had told me that time, that, look, if it goes again, like that's it. You're not gonna come back and do another rehab after a third surgery. So I knew we had to, get that one right. And I knew that, like, this was kind of, in essence, my last straw. So we were a little bit more conservative in that aspect.
Sure.
So if you look at my career, that's when I went from over to Chicago. And that first year, I didn't play a lot in Chicago when I first got there. Matt Pickens was there as well. But that was more of, okay, you've basically had 2 years of rehab. Like, we got to make sure we get you right for the future. But yeah, it was all about my mentality. And again, I was just one of those types, because of everything I've dealt with since, basically being 15 years old and telling me I was never going to be good enough because I wasn't tall enough, that it was just, I've always had a chip on my shoulder, right? Like, I've always had a chip on my shoulder that I'm going to prove you wrong. And I don't care how many people, and then that's one of the things I always tell my kids when I'm, coaching them, and they're like, well, I'm not going to be the tallest. And like, yeah, you take mental notes of who tells you you're not good enough because of your size. And it's literally like a checklist, right? Like, you go to the grocery store. I said, and when you prove that person wrong, cross them off your list, and then just move down to the next person. And I did that my whole career. I wasn't one to, like, talk trash to those, those people or whatever. It was more like, when I proved them wrong, that was enough proof. And okay, let me move to the next guy on my list. And that was my motivation a lot of times. That was my motivation of, okay, you didn't think I was tall enough. You didn't think I was good enough because I wasn't tall enough. Well, I proved you wrong.
Man, all right, I'm going to go on a little bit of a personal tangent here, but just to hear that is getting 17-year-old me like ready to run through a wall. Junior year of high school, people were telling me the same thing. You're not going anywhere because you're too small. And I actually had a coach who had coached me back when I was 10, came and visited. He was a college coach at that point. He watched me play in some indoor game and he goes, if you want to play, you can play. And it was from that point where I came in, and again, I was the shortest guy on every team, and I had to go out and prove it to them. But I also, like I said, I went through injuries as well, where I dislocated my shoulder 26 hours after having the head coach, after playing a spring game, keeping 90-minute shutout, and then the head coach saying, get ready for sophomore year, it's your net. 26 hours later, shoulder comes out.
Yeah.
Done for 14 months. I worked all the way through it. I pushed myself, get the mentality right. I worked with a buddy of mine. We worked every day, 2-a-days. Get out in the morning, go for a run, come back in the afternoon. Let's do a keeper session. 7 hours after getting on campus, the other one comes out. Doctor says you're done. You're never playing again. And it, like I said, just hearing the whole thing. If they gave me one more shot, I would have been the same thing. Give me one more chance, and I would have done it. But they didn't let me. But just hearing that thing, and I'm hoping whoever is listening to this has this fire set in them now, because right now I'm sitting in a chair ready to go put my gloves back on and get back out and do it again, because it that motivation, that mindset of I'm going to prove you wrong no matter how many times you tell me I can't do something, was from, again, I'm 25 now, so 8 years now of me just in that same mindset. Actually, I had to talk off of doing that because school didn't want to pay for me to go back to the hospital. But again, it's just I hope people who are listening to this understand what that really means, and get a fire lit underneath them, because it is such an important part of playing at a high level, whether you're going to high school, playing on a varsity team, whether you're playing JV from a team that you isn't playing at that level, whether you're going to college, D3, D2, D1, going up to the next level, it doesn't matter. That mentality needs to be there. And I really hope people understand that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.